Okay, this is worksheet 6. This is the test review for Unit 1. So we're going to go through how to do a couple of these. For the exact value, which is 1 through 9, use 3 steps. Step 1, find what quadrant you're in. That tells you if you're going to be positive or negative. Step 2, find your reference angle. And then step 3, use your reference angle chart to find your exact value. So if I look at number 1, step 1 is find what quadrant I'm in. So I'm going in the positive direction. I know that this is 0, this is pi over 2, this is pi, this is 3 pi over 2. My denominator here is 3, so I could make this, if I'm not exactly sure where this is going to fall, I could make this into a common denominator of 6. So this is 6 pi over 6, this is 9 pi over 6, and this would be 3 pi over 6, and then this angle itself would be 10 pi over 6. So now it's a little bit easier to see that 10 pi over 6 falls in between 9 pi over 6, and then of course this here would be 12 pi over 6, would be one time around. So I'm in the 4th quadrant. So that's important to know. So I'm in quadrant 4, and I'm dealing with sine. So my answer is going to be negative, and the reason for that is this. I know that I have all students take calculus, so if I'm in the 4th quadrant, only cosine is positive. So my answer is going to be negative. I wrote it up there so I wouldn't forget to do it. So now I need the reference angle. So my reference angle is the angle between the x-axis and my terminal side. It's always less than 90 degrees. It's always something that's going to be found on this chart right here, because I haven't given you anything else. So if you're finding an exact value, your reference eye is going to be here. If I'm just telling you find the reference angle, it could be anything. But if you need to find a value, it's got to be one of those. So my reference angle is the difference between this, which is 2 pi, and this, which is 5 pi over 3. But we just said 2 pi is the same thing as 12 pi over 6, and we said this is the same thing as 10 pi over 6. So I get 2 pi over 6, which is reduced to pi over 3. So my reference angle is pi over 3. So now I can look here at pi over 3, and I want sine. So here's sine, here's pi over 3, here's where they meet. So my answer is square root of 3 over 2, but again it's negative because I'm in the 4th quadrant and sine is negative there. So let's look at another one. Let's look at number 5. So number 5, first step, find what quadrant we're in. Second step, find my reference angle. Third step, use my table. So step 1, what quadrant am I in? Well, by looking at this right now, I can tell it's going to go around one time and then have some left over, right? So I know that 2 pi is one time around, and if I use a common denominator of 4, that's 8 pi over 4. So this is more than 8 pi over 4, so this has gone around one whole time and then some. So if I want to know my additional sum that it goes around, it's 9 pi over 4 minus 8 pi over 4. That tells me it went around an entire time and then an additional pi over 4. So I'm in quadrant 1, where everything is positive, so my answer is positive. And this is my reference angle. In quadrant 1, my angle is my reference angle. So this one is easy. I don't have to do any math to find the reference angle. I just look at my chart. I'm looking for cosine. So cosine, I'm looking for pi over 4, square root of 2 over 2. And again, it's positive because everything in the 1st quadrant is positive. All right, let's do one more of this kind. Let's do number 9, 3 pi over 2. So 3 pi over 2, if I look at where that is, this is 0, this is pi over 2, this is pi, this is 3 pi over 2. So whenever I am on the x or y axis, I don't actually need to use this at all. It's better not to. I just want to label my points. So if this was my unit circle, this point down here, I went 0 in the x direction, and I went -1 in the y. And remember that my x is cosine, my y is sine. So that's my cosine, that's my sine, that's all I have to do. I'm looking for sine, so my sine is -1. And again, that comes because sine is the y.